See, the great thing about having hand tattoos is that I can use them to gauge the focus. I think it's about there. So as long as I don't move my face from this position for the entire video, I might be in focus this time. This is how weird my drinking was. Drunk me would play tricks on sober me. I would play pranks on myself. I woke up hungover one Sunday morning and I couldn't find my shoes, and I spent most of that morning and part of the afternoon looking for them, and I eventually found them in the freezer compartment of my fridge. Drunk me had hidden them from sober me just to be a dickhole. And I know that is true. I know that to be the case, that it was a prank, because alongside the shoes in the freezer, there was a note scrawled in my drunken handwriting on a post-it note that said, "What's the matter, you sober twat? Got cold feet?" Luckily, I no longer need alcohol to be an idiot. Brothers, sisters, comrades and friends, welcome to Bat Country. I don't have much to offer in the way of actual sobriety advice. I have lots of stories, but not much wisdom. I'll be the first to admit that I don't really know for certain how I'm staying sober. I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. But for now, at least, things seem to be working. Everybody wants to know how to get and stay sober, as if it's a thing that you can just read on some AI-generated article on WikiHow. And I wish I could help, but I don't have a system. I don't really have a strategy for this. I'm just doing it. And therefore, there's no bullet point list that I can impart to offer guidance for those coming up behind me. I'm sorry for that. I wish that I did. I wish I had a program for you. But I can tell you what my days are like as a sober person. And from that, perhaps there's some useful information in the way that I go about my day that you might be able to interpret and utilize for your own sobriety. I can tell you some things that I'm doing which I think are contributing to my own sobriety. And because this is YouTube, and to quote one of my favorite YouTubers, Jenny Nicholson, I have organized them into an internet-friendly numbered list. Number 1, exercise. This is the boring one, so I thought I'd put it first. But I have absolutely given into that newly sober stereotype of getting super fit. It's weird, all sober people go through a period of super fitness. I remember watching Noah Says No, a sober YouTuber who's been doing it a long time. And he was a real mess when he started his YouTube channel. And now he's a CrossFit instructor with an OnlyFans. Now, I have a slight advantage here because I liked fitness already. I got quite fit in my early 20s. I already have the discipline to do it, and I do it because I like doing it. It's not a chore for me. It's something I already liked doing, so I have a head start in that regard. But most of my days begin with an early morning. At the moment, it's 6 a.m., but usually 6:30, and then a coffee, read my YouTube comments and all of the messages from you guys, and respond where I can, and then I'm off to the gym. I do weights more than cardio these days as I start to get older. I go for big weights. I like the way it hurts. It scratches some deep masochistic itch inside me that I'd rather not investigate too thoroughly. I don't go every day. I'm not a typical gym bro, and I'm not fanatical about it. I'll take a week off here and there, but it is undeniably a big part of my life and is central to my sobriety. Using my body, getting the endorphins into the bloodstream, I find that a very good replacement, in fact a superior replacement to alcohol. I think one of the things that sober people are attracted to in fitness, as me too, is that there is a very easily measurable progress about it. It provides real structure. And I know everybody's tired of hearing that exercise is the route to sobriety and mental health and all of that. It's boring, nobody likes hearing it, but it is true. And for those of us who are capable of doing exercise and maintaining our fitness, exercise is a sober panacea. It fixes everything. It makes everything better. And now that I've preached about exercise and fitness, I promise that's the last time I'll do it. I'll never mention it again. Number 2, structure. Bringing some structure to my day. Exercise helps in bringing that structure in. That's another facet of why exercise is so good in sobriety. The knowledge that I'm getting up a little bit early in the morning means that I have to have clothes prepared, and I have to consider that I will need a shower before work, and that I have to be putting good nutrition into my body. All of these things add up to the creation of a structure. It doesn't really matter what the structure is, it's the existence of one that matters. Things like eating well and having clean clothes and showering. Now, those are usually the first things to go in active drinking, right? They are for me. And having a conscious effort, having a reason, having a structure as to why I need to prepare those things and focus on them is just very valuable. Lockdown screwed up a lot of structure for a lot of people, including me. I now work full-time from home or remotely, and that means that I have to have discipline. I have to be at my desk at 9 a.m. and I can wind down at 6 p.m. as long as the work is done. And setting these targets, bringing this kind of regime, this regiment into your life, is a very healthy thing to do in sobriety. Again, I'm not fanatical about it. I give myself about 35% wiggle room so that it's not too rigid for me. Otherwise, I think I would rebel against it and it would fail in a different way. Having some slack built into the structure is good for my personality. Similarly, forcing myself to do this channel, to do YouTube videos, also brings some structure, because I know that I have to have time allotted in the week to film and edit and publish and reply to comments. What do you think of my haircut, by the way? I was starting to get tired of covering up my receding hairline. This channel feels very much like journaling, which is number 3, journaling. Okay, journaling. I'll tell you why I think journaling is valuable for everybody. Journaling, just keeping a daily account of what you're feeling, what you're doing, and how you're processing challenges and that kind of thing. It helps you identify when you're close to spiraling out. The process of recording your thoughts in a journal and then reading them back is a process of learning to understand yourself. It's a way of gaining insight into your own thought processes, which you normally wouldn't have access to. It's a process of understanding yourself better, and it helps. Again, I'm not religious about this. I don't do it every day, not anymore. But it is a useful exercise, and it's a real genuine tool. We sometimes talk about the tools that we require in recovery, and I think journaling is very high on my list of actual tools that you can use. Number 4, learning to enjoy being sober. It took me years to realize that sobriety was not a sacrifice. I was years into my sobriety journey, years before I began to truly understand that the alcohol was the sacrifice. When you're drinking, you are just giving away time. And when you quit, it's not a sacrifice to give that up. In fact, quite the opposite. You get all of that back with interest. So one of the things I actively do in sobriety is I learn to enjoy the things I used to do drunk, sober. I was a lonely drinker, not a social drinker. And one of my favorite things to do was to walk around cities at night, in the dark and in the rain, drinking from a bottle of vodka, straight from the bottle, on the streets, stopping in late night shops, or diving into a seedy neon bar just for a quick shot, just to feel the kind of life around me, but not willing to be a part of it. In those periods of drinking, I enjoyed being on the outside, looking in. I would quite often wander up to the top of a high hill and somewhere I could oversee the entire city and drink until morning. I would just wander. And I still love to do that. I still love to wander. But now, instead of a bottle of cheap vodka, it's a flask of coffee, and my camera. Long train journeys too, staring out the window. I used to do those drunk. I've had to recondition myself to find ways to enjoy them sober. I've had to relearn all of these things, to find out if they are fun sober, and if they are not, then I stop doing them. I replace them with something else. Number 5, I go to bed early. 22-year-old Bat Country would be mortified to hear 39-year-old Bat Country say this, but sleep has become one of my all-time favourite activities. I love it. Oh my god, guys, have you tried sleep? You got to try it. I'm really good at it. I'm really good. I could sleep competitively. I would win. I wish there was a sleep theme park I could go to. I would go every day and be front of the line every morning. I would go every time, all the time. I wish I was asleep now. Sleep is amazing, and I love it. And it's one of the best things in my life. And it is every night. It's a gift I give to myself. And that's sobriety. It both keeps me sober and is a product of sobriety. In all seriousness, once you have gone 5 days in delirium tremens and alcoholic withdrawal syndrome, and you've been 5 days without a wink of sleep, you value the sleep afterwards. Because not being able to sleep is torture. Very literally, in some cases. I used to fantasize about drinking whiskey and sex. And now I daydream about collapsing into bed at 9:30 p.m. and falling asleep in front of an old episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000, and I wouldn't give it up for the world. Maybe that's age, maybe that's sobriety, maybe it's Maybelline. I don't know, but I'm in bed by 10 p.m. and nobody is getting in my way. I will leave my own party and go to bed. I don't care. Number 6, finding weird and innovative ways to express my alcoholic urges. That's a bit of a mouthful. Let me explain. Okay, so this is a weird one. For a long time, I tried pretending that I didn't have alcohol urges. I tried to pretend that I didn't have an urge when I was in a liquor store of taking a bottle of vodka off the shelf and smashing the neck off and downing it with the broken glass and all, like that alcoholic priest in the very underrated movie Constantine. But that ignoring alcohol urges, it was an unsuccessful strategy for me. I was lying to myself and to others. We all have urges, even if they're not specifically for alcohol, but more just like urges towards self-obliteration, which is more like the urges that I experience. I have no desire to go and grab a bottle of wine or anything. I never really have in recovery. I have the urge towards obliteration. That's what my urges really are. Now I recognize them for what they are. That is addiction, trying to tug at my sleeve. And I tell people about them, usually my girlfriend. I'll go and tell her when I have a particularly weird one or unexpected one. It's useful to tell my girlfriend. I had one the other night, actually, just to digress for a moment, if you'll indulge me. I'll just tell you about it very briefly. Okay, so it was the morning, and one of the things I used to do in active drinking was I had an inclination. I used to enjoy going to like a gas station at 3 a.m. and buying a bottle of vodka and drinking it as I walked back to my apartment. Just that short journey. Everywhere I've been, that's been a feature of my drinking. I was coming home from the gym a couple of weeks ago, and I stopped at a gas station. It wasn't one I usually stop at. And it was like 8 a.m. There was no reason for me to have this particular urge. But as I walked around the front of the gas station, they had one of those metal drawers and a glass window that they use when the gas station is closed in the evening, at night. And I looked at it, at this pull-out drawer where you exchange money in, vodka out. And the thought that was in my head was this would be a perfect place to come at 3 o'clock in the morning and have an anonymous bottle of vodka and a long walk home in the dark and be hammered by the time I got home. And that's a strange urge, isn't it? It's not an urge to be with people, or it's not even really an urge for the alcohol itself. It's an urge for that drunken stretch of walking. Anyway, back to the point. I find ways to safely indulge those urges. And I'll give you a recent example. There's a computer game called Disco Elysium, and in it you play an alcoholic, severely hungover cop trying to solve a crime and also the mystery of his own identity. But you can do anything you want with this character. You can create him however you see fit, however you want to play through the game. And I did one playthrough recently in which I made him drink everything in the game, as much as possible. Never said no when it was offered or available. At every opportunity, I got him hammered, living vicariously through him, I suppose. And it was cathartic. It was like exorcising the urge. It was a bit like when Jesus met that possessed guy at the tombs, and he pulled out the demon and he put it in the field of pigs and then made the pigs run off a cliff. It was exactly like that. My point is, there are ways to scratch that drinking itch without actually drinking. And yeah, perhaps that doesn't sound like very sober behaviour, but you know what? I am sober, so shut up. Number 7, talking really honestly. At some point, I stopped lying. I don't know when it was, but I did. It wasn't a conscious decision, but at some point, the lies just stopped emerging, mostly. And when that happened, in that moment, I didn't realise it. Whenever that moment was, I turned a corner on my sobriety. I suspect part of what pushes me to drink is that I am a bottler-upper. I'm a bottle-up person. Bottler of emotions. To the point where those emotions become overwhelming and I don't know how to handle them very well, and the only refuge is in oblivion. At some point, I learned that the best treatment for bottling things up was to stop doing that, was to stop it. Stop bottling it up. Easier said than done, I know, but I began to tell people what I was really feeling and to talk about negative emotions and fears, the kinds of things that I usually would have kept private. I allowed them voice. And that's been very valuable. I do that. I make a point of doing that. And I stop myself when I feel like I'm straying into a lie. That comes with some risk, though, and some pain. Because when you're very honest with people, they tend to be more willing to be very honest back. And there is a lot, for example, that my parents and my girlfriend want to tell me about what I put them through while I was drinking. And it's not easy to hear. I found out that while I was deep in a particularly bad relapse, my parents' local church had organised a prayer group for me. My parents don't even go to church. That is a heavy burden, and it's difficult to hear, a very heavy thing to learn. But it's necessary. We have to hear these things over time. I had to learn to be able to hear it. I'm still not good at it. I am still a bottler-upper, but I'm better than I was, and that's helping to keep a relapse at bay. Number 8, work. I'm lucky in as much as I like working and I love my job. I know I'm very rare in that regard. Work causes a lot of people to drink. It can be the cause of drinking. And it was for me occasionally too. Now though, it tends to keep me sober. It tends to keep me occupied. Stress is the enemy of sobriety, but so is boredom. And I have managed to find a balance for myself where my work is stimulating enough to keep me occupied, but not so stimulating that it becomes overwhelming and stressful. Work doesn't really drive me to feel like I need to vent the pressure with alcohol like it used to. I had to make some serious life changes to get to that point. And like I said, this is not advice. There's no way I can advise you to find a better balance in your work. It's just not that easy. I've been very lucky. And this is just about my day-to-day stuff, what I think is keeping me sober. So not advice, I'm just saying this is me. Number 9, photography. I think in recovery, having a creative pursuit is crucial. One that a creative pursuit that is not your job, I think is extremely valuable, even for those of you who don't consider yourselves creative people. We are all creative people, and we all benefit from having that outlet in one way or another, whatever that outlet is, whatever kind of hobby you pursue. For me, it's photography. Photography, I can safely say, is contributing actively to my sobriety. I love the process of it more than the output. I like the craft of it more than I like the finished product. I don't think my finished photography is very good, but I thoroughly enjoy every single moment of the process. Photography is a good hobby. If you do it the way that I do it, it doesn't need to be very expensive. You can have an old digital camera or any analog camera, and then it produces more hobbies around it. So a secondary hobby of my photography is shopping for vintage lenses. This is one of my all-time favorites. This is a 1957 Steinheil Autoquina 135mm f2.8 for the record, and I'm filming on a 1963 Meyer Optic Oriston 50mm f1.8 for those of you keeping count. But photography is suitably nerdy and suitably creative. If you're not close to photography, then you'll have to perhaps take my word for this. But there are few feelings better than when you set out to get a specific photograph and you have picked all of the equipment that you're going to need, and then you go out and you take a flask of coffee and you spend an hour or two outdoors and you get the photograph, and then you get home and you see that it is exactly what you set out to get. There is something very circular about that. There is a sense of completeness that I find conceptually very satisfying in sobriety. And that's my list. And now, the other thing. Okay, those were 9 things that I am doing towards my sobriety. And there's an elephant in the rooms. One thing that I am currently not doing. There's one thing missing from this list, isn't there? So, let's meet it head on. Am I currently part of any 12-step recovery program? Or any kind of, I don't know, secret sober community? And we're not allowed to tell you about it. A bit like a sober version of Fight Club. Dry Club. The first rule of Dry Club is you do not talk about Dry Club. The second rule of Dry Club is no drinking. How old is that movie? I'm still doing fucking Fight Club references. Jesus Christ. But no, to answer that question, am I part of any 12-step program actively at the moment? No, I'm not in a program. I like 12-step programs. I've seen success with them myself in the past, and I am unashamedly in favour of them, and I don't hesitate to recommend them to people who come to me looking for sober advice, God forbid. But no, I'm not doing it myself at the moment. It's just not working for me right now. And that's a difficult realisation and a difficult thing to admit too, because it sounds a little bit like a criticism, and it isn't. But there's a thing in sobriety that we tell newcomers, and that occasionally you're going to have to let friends go in order to preserve your own health. And that's what I've done with the 12-step programs for now. I'm sure I'll return at some point, but at the moment I'm doing better than I ever have done before by forging my own path, finding my own way through it. I'm taking what I've learned in months and years in 12-step programs and enacting it according to my own interpretation of it. The system itself says, chew the meat, spit out the bones. And that's what I'm doing. And for me, unfortunately, some of those bones include the groups themselves. And for those of you who are tempted in the comments to say that by adhering to the principles of the 12 steps programs without attending the 12-step programs, I'm essentially setting myself up for a relapse, I would politely point out that people in the 12-step programs relapse at an equal rate to those outside. And I am doing okay. And frankly, I owe a lot of that to you. If there is anything resembling a system to my sobriety, then this channel, Bat Country, and my interactions with you, that's the largest part of it right now. I love doing this. It's a pain in the ass sometimes, but I love it. And as much as I feel deeply inadequate and self-conscious when one of you fine people reaches out to me to talk privately, it makes me immensely proud. And I didn't expect that when I first started doing this. The pride and the privilege I feel when I read the comments and I wake up to emails and Instagram messages, that's all the motivation I need right now. So thank you for helping me stay sober. That's it for today. Thank you for watching, and as always, good luck out there.